Welcome back, folks. Apologies for the lighting at the moment. I'm working on a new lighting system and we're in a new location. But welcome back to Not Funny Guys Presents Go Team Venture. We're moving right along here in season 3. I hope everybody had a good weekend. If you don't know that, this is coming out on Monday, so fun. And this time we're looking at the invisible hand of fate, and home is where the hate is / my dinner with hatred. Let's start with Invisible Hand of Fate, which gets mentioned several times in the episode. This aired back on June 15th, 2008, written by Jackson Public. And this one kind of goes back into like a little bit more of the backstory. We've been teased this already about Billy not knowing where he got his robot hand from, and the fact that he somehow has some sort of connection to Phantom Limb. This was previewed back in season 2 when there was all kinds of discussion. I believe I actually wrote down the episode somewhere in my notes here. Victor Echo November. That's the one I'm thinking about. There was a whole little backstory that there's a connection between them, and there is. So we find Billy and Pete. We're at their trailer. All of a sudden, Billy falls off the toilet, starts having flashes of the past, starts to remember things, and Pete knocks him out and calls quote unquote Goldilocks, which apparently turns out to be Brock Sampson. But we go back into the past where apparently Pete White is hosting a game show in makeup and a wig called Quiz Boys. And this is where he met or cross paths with Mr. Bailey Whalen, aka Quiz Boy. We also come to find out that this is in and around the same time where Myra, Crazy Myra, is perhaps having the end of her time as Dr. Venture's bodyguard. We find out that the Quiz Boy show is rigged. It kind of gets exposed and ends up ruining Pete and therefore also Billy as a result, because they were propping him up like a nice quiz show scandal. It's always fun. Pete offers to introduce Billy to Dr. Venture to make up for all this. And so he calls it the Invisible Hand of Fate. It's not the first time it'll be used. We then splash cut to OSI doing their own version of G.I. Joe introduction, with Shore Leave and all the thing going out there and taking out the bad guys, aka Spinks, acting in the place of Cobra. They'll come back eventually. And then they come dressed like the Village People. In fact, Hunter Gatherers even mentions this because he's got a young Brock Sampson. They're chasing down the Guild, which at this point apparently everybody sort of believes is not a real thing. So they get kind of made fun of for this. And Race Bannon is alive at this point, sticks his head out the door to sort of stick up for them, where he is obviously torturing somebody either by pulling teeth or nails. I can't remember, but yeah. Okay. So Billy and Pete are making their way to Dr. Venture, and while they do so to earn money, they start working underground quiz shows, proving that, Billy is actually decently good at this, until unfortunately they end up in a dogfight where Billy loses his hand and an eye, but he gets recruited by Brock and Hunter come and find him, basically. After they get rejected, of course, by Venture Industries, they happen to show up at the same time that Myra is being taken away to the insane asylum. So the whole dog fighting thing goes terribly wrong for them, and of course Billy abandons Pete and gets picked up, like I said, by Brock and Hunter. Then they introduce the nozzle. Please be still. The nozzle is calibrating. Love that one. This is all part of Billy's past. They give him a new eye, which apparently allows him to spy, a new hand. And they're recruiting him to basically go to State University and work for Professor Phantomos, aka Phantom Limb, because they believe he has high-level connections to the Guild. It comes to find out that the class he's in is actually full of freaks, kind of like him. So he feels like he belongs. We also get to meet Sheila, a young Sheila, aka Dr. Girlfriend, before she is. And then Stevie, who is his roommate and the lab assistant, dies, hangs himself, murdered according to Hunter and Brock. And they ask basically Billy to take his place. We then get introduced that Phantomos has these tiny shrunken arms, and I'm assuming legs that he uses prosthetics for. We also get a reference to Mike Soriyama from Past Tense as well, with the robotics thing. So they recruited him, and then of course Phantomos takes him in, and he basically again calls it the invisible hand of fate. They tries to help him out with a machine. He's not qualified. They apparently faked his paper using Stephen Hawking's. Of course, the electricity in the experiment all goes wrong, and his limbs do not regrow as they're supposed to. They do, but they're also invisible. It sort of goes wrong and explodes. Phantom Limb escapes. Hunter, his whole mission's gone pear-shaped. So Hunter gets transferred, and Brock gets sent to be bodyguard for Dr. Venture. But of course, he's being chewed out by a one Sergeant Hatred before it's revealed that he's working for the guild as well. And of course, Brock goes and gives Billy to Pete to watch over. I don't know. And of course, it ends with Billy waking up in the Venture lab. He's still mad. He still remembers. He tries to beat up Brock. Okay. So that brings us to the end of that episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. We're going to move on to our next episode here. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, follow, comment, all that fun stuff. But let's move on to Home is Where the Hatred Is. All right, folks. So here we are, episode 4 of season 3, and Home is Where the Hatred Is / My Dinner with Hatred. I'm assuming this is, of course, the play on Home is Where the Heart Is. This aired June 22nd, 2008, written by Jackson Public and Doc Hammer. And of course, we find ourselves in the gated community. I mentioned this back in the last episode where they moved into Phantom Limb's house, the Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend. Well, apparently it also belongs to a exclusive community of villains called Malice. The Monarch is a little freaked out by everything. He's having a hard time adjusting to this. Also, as we'll see throughout the episode, he's having a hard time not arching Dr. Venture. He's trying to burn all of Phantom Limb's old stuff, and they're invited to Hatred's party. He doesn't want to go initially. Sorry, I was reading one of my own notes there for a second, but there's a funny moment where, of course, the new arch that Hatred is sharing with everybody at this party is that he has a new arch, and his new arch is Dr. Venture. He shows up and immediately runs into the boys and says, "Hey, your dad around?" We then cut to him afterwards, where his men have been beaten up by Brock, being escorted on thing, and apparently he was just coming around to do paperwork with Dr. Venture. It was a howdy wagon. So they're setting up ground rules. That's why Hatred's come, signing up all these things, trying to gauge minutes. It's very HR paperwork. It's absolutely hilarious. The Monarch, of course, is continuing to move into his new place when he has to let the henchmen know that they're staying in the cocoon. They're not happy about that. And of course, at one point when he starts opening a book and flipping through, looking at potential new arches, one of them, I try to remember the professor somebody he does actually go after, but you actually see Dr. Quinn, who we will meet next time. Or rather in 2 episodes, but we'll talk about next time. He's obviously still obsessed with Dr. Venture. He even fantasized about him. And then Venture's family shows up at his door looking for Hatred's place because they are going to the party, and he decides to tag along. Of course, Hank and Dean are not allowed in because one of the things that's the backstory of Sergeant Hatred is that he's a recovering pedophile. Fun times, folks. Yes, I said that. Don't kill me, you two. So Hank and Dean is very wary of being at his party unsupervised. And so he gets into the cocoon to be babysat by 2124. 24 is actually in the recovery room because the Moppets have stabbed him. And so while Hatred's showing off his gadgets, the Monarch, he actually shows him a tiny explosive that he steals and then puts on Dr. Venture as a revenge move. Dr. Venture is going back to hitting on Dr. Girlfriend again. 21 drops Dean off with 24 to entertain him, like Patch Adams. And then 21 Hank go to spy on the Moppets, to which They get found out, run for their life, end up having to get 24 and Dean and hide in a maze. Eventually, they find out they're being tracked using their suits, and they literally strip down naked and run across Hatred's yard later. Of course, Hatred and the Monarch get into a hot tub, and Hatred reveals that he's going to wine and dine Dr. Venture just to piss him off, basically. And then all of a sudden, Venture joins him. Now, remember, Venture's got a bomb. And at this point, the Monarch has told Hatred that he's done this as a way of kind of ruining his day. And so when he gets in the pool with them, in the hot tub jacuzzi with them, they're all like terrified. They just let a bomb in there. Of course, apparently it diffuses. Either it didn't work or the water diffuses it. So it goes off. It looks like Dr. Venture's basically farted. And at this point, 21, 24 come running naked across the lawn. The party breaks up. 24, 21, Hank are chatting. Brock calls them home, and at this point, Hatred gets really super creepy with them about staying over, video games in the basement, all that kind of stuff. Ew. And I believe that's all part of the end credits, too. So, fun, kind of off the beaten path episode. If we think back about, the Invisible Hand of Faith, we got a lot of backstory, world building. This one, we get a little bit more world building, but we also get interpersonal dynamics flaring up. So, Wednesday, we will be continuing on with episodes 5 and 6. We'll be looking at the buddy system and Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Like I mentioned, her photo has already been focused in one of the little Archie books that the Monarch was reading, so we'll come back to her later. But that is where we'll pick up on Wednesday. In the meantime, like, subscribe, follow along, watch along. So far, if you're watching Venture Brothers right now, you can still watch it on Netflix. By the time we get to talking about the end of season 3, I'm going to try and find other locations. Like I said, I have multiple ways of viewing this myself, but if you are interested in watching along, there are multiple ways to do so, and I'll try to direct everybody in those directions. So in the meantime, please feel free to write us in. notfunnyguys.offthereels. Is that one? Or is it fun? Whatever. I'll try to remember the social media stuff later. In the meantime, comment and like on these videos. We're all good. Until next time. Say not funny guys again.
Not funny guys again.
No, can you say not funny guys?